All right, so welcome to the first seminar of the Texas Pinball Festival for 2024. If you're listening to Paul, this is the 20th anniversary of TPF. There were also the APOP Pinball Rama years before that. So this year they wanted to do a series on how-to for various things in pinball, and one of the things that they asked me to do here is getting started in pinball tournaments. So I'm your host for this, Marx, and why am I qualified to tell you anything? Well, I own and operate the longest continually operating pinball league in Texas, so I guess that has something to do with it. But it's not just for playing in pinball leagues. It's tournaments, it's fun. People ask me point blank in a word, why are you playing in pinball tournaments? Why should people play in pinball tournaments? And the first answer really is camaraderie. So the picture on your screen here was taken just last month at an event in Abilene that drew 80 players from 3 states, actually 4 states, but a lot of them from Dallas, Houston, Austin, San Antonio, in Texas as well. And it's just fun, just a good time. So more on why to play in pinball tournaments. You know, I asked 4 of our local people, why do you play? Same thing. Sandy said camaraderie and friendship being built. Being new to Texas, it gave her a great group of people. Just being part of the competition is enjoyable, is what Kevin Rodriguez said. Craig Hassel said, I enjoy the competitiveness of tournaments because it doesn't matter how well you play at home. This is where the skill you've learned on these games shines to advance further through the game and achieve higher scores. And Ken Kemp said, it's more fun to compete, if only at a casual level. It gives me a set time and place to hang out, talk, and play pinball, and see and play games. So, that's just a starting point. There are 2 types of pinball tournaments in general. You have sanctioned tournaments and unsanctioned tournaments. Most of what you're going to see is sanctioned tournaments because most of what's out there are sanctioned. So I'm going to skip sanctioned for a second and just talk about unsanctioned for a second. Because for your unsanctioned pinball tournaments, a lot of those are bars, clubs, arcades that just want to do their own thing. Hey, let's have a tournament, and there's nothing wrong with that. Just those are a little harder to find. Usually you'll find them on the website or the Facebook page or the Twitter page, whatever social media for that establishment, whether it be a bar, whether it be an arcade. The advantage of doing an unsanctioned tournament is they can do it their way. They don't have to meet all the sanctioning requirements at that point. There's a type of tournament I like to run called a critical hit tournament, which is always unsanctioned because you can't follow the same set of rules. With a critical hit, you have a deck of cards and you play a card and it might say, give your opponent 2 tilt warnings. So you literally walk up to their ball and give 2 tilt warnings on their ball. Or it says, at the start of ball 3, trade your score with another player. So all sorts of interesting, fun ways to mess with your friends with a critical hit tournament. But a critical hit tournament is usually going to be unsanctioned because it can't follow the standard rules. So those are your unsanctioned tournaments. And again, the best ways to find those are at the facilities that are hosting them, whether it's a bar that has pinball machines, an arcade, things like that, or on their social media, on their websites, etc. Most of what you're going to see here is sanctioned tournaments. The sanctioned tournaments are sanctioned by a sanctioning body. There are 3 currently operating sanctioning bodies in the United States, but by far the most widely recognized is the IFPA. And so that's the one that's the one I have used, and that is the one I'm going to talk about here just from my knowledge base. So there's various types of tournaments. For example, a standard or main tournament format. This is your traditional tournaments. It's open to anyone to play in. And then there are different types of tournaments, whether it be group match play or strikes tournaments, or they have something called a flip frenzy, which is you're playing as many games in a set amount of time. There are all sorts of different formats, but all these fall under the guise of a standard or a main tournament format. Then there are different spin-offs, like your women's tournaments. The women's tournaments have been a very good growing trend. Pinball has been traditionally a male-dominated sport. So to combat this, sanctioning bodies over the last several years have implemented the women's leagues. The logos for the Dallas and Houston women's leagues are on the screen here, and if anybody's in Dallas and wants a card from the local women's league, they gave them to me to give out. But the advantage of the women's league is, a lot of women, when asked why they didn't want to play pinball in tournaments, where they were intimidated because it's, 90% men in these tournaments. So the ladies' league gave a way for women to get involved, start having fun, feeling more comfortable before they started adding themselves to the mixed tournaments, the full main standard tournaments. I know the DFW Women's League over time has significantly helped the DFW Pinball League. Our male to female ratio has gone from probably 95-5 10 years ago when I started this to, at this point, we probably have 25 to 33% women. That's mostly because of the women's leagues. So, and the links are here as far as how to get to their sites, but basically if you do a search, that's where you'll find it. So getting to some of the tougher questions. The first question I always hear is, well, aren't the tournaments difficult to get into? I've heard stories, tournament sells out in 5 minutes. What do I need to do to get involved? So it's a great question. The short answer is yeah. Some of the tournaments are harder to get into than others, but it's different for each event. There's a lot more opportunity than ever before also, because the IFPA has been growing over the last couple of decades, but especially since COVID, they've been growing by leaps and bounds. Most major tournaments tend to go on sale early. So they sell out quickly on a first-come, first-served basis. The Wizards tournament going on upstairs right now sold out in a matter of minutes back in September. So that can be discouraging for people that don't know how to get involved. That said, this year's Pinball Festival, like I said, Wizards tournament sold out in minutes in September, but other tournaments that went on sale early don't necessarily sell out so fast. The Cactus Jack Silver Ball Showdown, which used to be a Stern Pro Circuit event, and now just a nice IFPA certified event at a great venue. It's being held in May. It went on sale March 1st, and as of March 5th, they still had tickets available. I don't know today, but so they didn't sell out in minutes like a lot of the majors do these days. The Titan Pinball Southwest Regional Pin Masters, that's one of the biggest pin golf tournaments, which is a format where you're playing it like golf. You're shooting for a score on a pinball machine, so you're not playing against your opponents. You're just trying to get to a score. That hasn't even sold out yet. It went on sale March 1st. It still has 30 of 128 tickets left, and that's a major. The winner of that gets invite to the IFPA 2025 Pin Masters World Championship. So it's a pretty big deal. And that's here in Arlington, Texas. Again, both of those went on sale on March 1st. So I talked about more opportunities than ever before. So how about I elaborate on that for you? As I said, they've been growing immensely over the last decade, so just skipping to the second bullet here. When I started in 2015, the DFW Pinball League, my league, was the only league you could play in on a continuous, ongoing basis in DFW. I was it. Now, today, we've got Carpool Pinball, who does mostly streaming, but they run a couple of tournaments as well. They ran 2 of the tournaments in Abilene recently. The DFW Women's League, which we talked about. The Free Play Pinball League, which is hosted by Free Play Arcade at every one of their locations locally. And NTX Pinball runs multiple monthly tournaments out of a person's house in Capel, Texas, not in Capel, in what's that city? The Colony, Texas, excuse me, just down the street from here, Colony, Texas. And this guy has in his house 20-odd machines and hosts multiple tournaments a month, including a ladies' league event every month as well. So there's a lot more opportunity than there used to be. But let's elaborate even more. Forever, in the Texas Pinball Festival, you had the Wizards Tournament and the Classic Side Tournament, both of which sell out in a day. The Wizards Tournament in minutes, the Classic Side Tournament, if you're lucky, you'll get a day, day and a half to register for that. So if you didn't know about it 6 months ago, how do you get involved? Well, in the past, you never did. Now you do. This year, for example, we have 2 groups that are running pinball tournaments here on the floor, separate from the big tournaments that sold out 6 months ago. One of them's Hangar Pinball, and the other one's NTX Pinball, and they're both running pinball tournaments that you could go join right now for today, tomorrow, and Sunday out here on the floor. And both organizations have said that they're giving a portion of their proceeds to charities as well. So it's a nice little add-on. Hangar Pinball is in the main room. They've got a booth in the main room next door. And they own and operate an arcade in Tulsa, Oklahoma with 30 plus pinball machines. Their major event every year is the Tilt Championship in late July. And you can find details on their Facebook page. But for TPF weekend, they have an event they're running, and they've got a Facebook page strictly dedicated to this event. But they've got an event they're running. Starts today from 5 to 10, runs tomorrow from noon to 10, and Sunday from 10 to noon. And it's open qualifying, so you can go qualify anytime. They're charging $10 entry per card that they do, and unlimited tries available, so you could buy back in for $10 more anytime you want on their end. NTX Pinball's right outside the door here. They're in the hallway. That's the guy from the Colony, Texas, that runs tournaments out of his house every month. He tries to aim it at all skill levels and tries to actively attract new people. He'll advertise in some non-traditional sources, for example, to try and get new people to come play. They have 3 different events going on, 2 of them today, which will be covered on the next page. But then they also have a third one, their big one, where they have qualifying all day tomorrow from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. And then their finals is going to be the top 32 of the qualifiers on Sunday, starting at 9 a.m. Their entry fee is $5 per card, and again, unlimited rebuys, so you can try again if you need to. And again, they have 2 tournaments today. One started at 9:45 a.m., the other one starts in about 30 minutes. And both of these are 100% of their funds from these 2 are going to the NTX Community Food Pantry for charity. So again, they're right outside the door here. And you can pre-register with those QR codes as well, or, when we're done here, just walk outside the door. So, in general, how do you find pinball tournaments? If you're new to pinball tournaments, you've been in pinball, I know people that have been in pinball 25 years and have said, I've never played in a tournament. I've been doing pinball 22 or 23 years. And I only started doing tournaments about 10 to 12 years ago, and I started running them 9 years ago, basically, in 2015. So if you're new and you want to know, how do I find pinball tournaments around me? Well, there are several ways. So the first one, like I said, for unsanctioned tournaments, ones that aren't covered by a sanctioning body, usually it's going to be on the venues page, like I said earlier. The host, the facility, or both will advertise it. For sanctioned tournaments, there are a lot of places you can look. The first one's the IFPA Pinball website. That's www.ifpapinball.com. And as we're showing here with the red box at the right, you can click on either IFPA calendar or IFPA certified tournaments. Certified tournaments are going to be larger tournaments, so if you want to start smaller and just get your feet wet, start with IFPA calendar. When you click on the IFPA calendar, the screen like what you see at the right here comes up, and it asks you your location. You can put in city, you can put in zip code, anything, and tell it how many miles around that area you want to look. And it'll tell you every tournament that's been sanctioned around that area. A sanctioning organization has to have a pinball tournament sanctioned, or a league, like my league, the DFW Pinball League. We have to have a tournament sanctioned either 30 days before the event's going to happen, so it'll be on this calendar at least 30 days ahead of time, or if pre-registration is required, then 30 days before pre-registration opens. So if pre-registration is required, I'll get to this in a minute, but you'll actually look at the pre-registration calendar. So you want to look at 2 calendars if it's one that requires pre-registration. So when you put in your location and your distance, click search to proceed, and it'll show you results, which on the screen, the ones that are red boxed are the ones going on right now upstairs, the Wizards tournament and the Classic Side tournament here at the Texas Pinball Festival. But it'll give you a whole list of all the tournaments within the search criteria that you put in. There are other views right here in the tab bar in the middle. There's the full calendar. If you click on that, it doesn't let you filter by distance, but it does let you filter by month. So if you want to know month and year, all the tournaments that are already registered, you can look that way. There's the women's calendar, which only shows women's tournaments. There's the certified tournaments calendar. Certified tournaments are larger, more valuable tournaments, but usually also harder to get into and usually require pre-registration. And then there's a pre-registration calendar. This will show any event that has pre-registration required, but pre-registration hasn't opened yet. Once pre-registration's opened, it's going to be on the main calendar. Next good place to go if you want to find tournaments is match play. Now, if you're going to play in a tournament, I would advise you highly, go to the website next.matchplay.events. Next.matchplay.events. Every major tournament organizer uses match play, unless it's a giant tournament like the Wizards tournament upstairs. There's special software for that. But for just about everything else, they use match play. And match play is completely free to sign up for. The tournament directors pay for it, so I pay for it. The players never do. And they say, well, what about my privacy? Well, I can tell you it's a tournament director who is a computer programmer for a living in California. The guy's name is Andreas, who has built the entire match play software by himself. It is a person of one. He doesn't share anybody's information. So, for example, in the DFW League here, most of our events, because we're at private locations on pinball machines that you can never see in public, almost all of our tournaments have head count limits, so you have to RSVP on the match play software on that website. So, first starting place for anybody is go to next.matchplay.events and sign up, and it is totally free. The other thing about the software for match play, I keep saying software, it's a website, it's not software, is that it's a great place to find tournaments. Because separate from, that's what we use to run the tournaments, and that's what we use to RSVP for tournaments. Again, unless it's a real large tournament, then you might go to something like Eventbrite. But otherwise, most directors use match play. If you click on Launch Match Play button on the last page, right here in the middle, once you load it up, and then in the menu that comes up the top for your dashboard, click on the 3 bars at the left here. It'll bring up this menu you see on the right, and you've got 2 things you can pull up. You can pull up event listings or tournament listings. So tournaments or event listings. So the default view for tournaments, first of all, is going to be tournaments you've recently looked at, so things you've recently viewed, and then any tournaments anywhere going on today that are registered in match play. But at the top here, the green button is Find Tournaments, and it has a really good search engine in there to find tournaments near you. They give you several options for filtering, different options than the IFPA gives, so it's another way to find tournaments. The other thing we had looked at back here is event listings. Well, event listings is like the Abilene Showdown that we had a month ago. They actually had 4 pinball tournaments run by 2 different tournament directors at one venue in 3 days. So how do you list those together? Well, one of the tournament directors builds an event listing, and all of the tournaments appear under that one event listing. So if you'd clicked on event listings and clicked on Abilene Showdown, it would have shown you all 4 tournaments going on in Abilene that weekend, all in one spot. So that's another way to do it. But again, next.matchplay.events is that software, and it's totally free, and there's never a risk. So another way to find tournaments is find your local pinball league on social media. I tried to count on Facebook, and I couldn't count that high in a reasonable amount of time. I've got kids, I got interrupted, things happened. But there are probably hundreds of different local pinball leagues that have their own Facebook page. And if you go to one of those Facebook pages, like mine is what's shown here, just because I know where it is and it's easy, and you click on the tab for events, because they always default at discussion. You click on tab for events, here's the list of all the upcoming events that have been put on the event calendar on Facebook. So that's another way for any local pinball league. I know in Houston, it's the Space City Pinball League. In Austin, they've got 2 of them, the Bat City Pinball League and the Salamander City Pinball League. I don't know the difference, other than different operators. But, you know, in Oklahoma, they have Oklahoma Pinball Enthusiast Group on Facebook, same thing. So there are groups all over the country. Gulf Coast, Louisiana has a group, you know, and all of them list their events on their pages as well. So another way to find your pinball tournaments is Pinside or Tilt forums or other similar forum type sites, community type platforms. So Pinside is run by a couple of guys from the Netherlands. They've come to TPF several times, really nice guys. And it's the biggest collection of just the pinball community. It's like Facebook for pinballers, basically. And they have yet their own search engine, but you also have other forum sites that are popular, like Tilt Forums, that also has event calendars there that you can look at as well. So Tilt Forums is another popular one. But pin side, I'm showing you on the page here, you can add an event, any size, big or small, and it'll appear on their calendar. And there's an event size filter when you're looking for large events, small events, private events, tournament events, league events. So there are differences between leagues and tournaments, by the way. Leagues, they make it like a bowling league. You have to have multiple events that you go to, and there are lots of leagues running. The DFW Pinball League, what I run, is called DFW Pinball League because that's the name of our LLC, because until this year, we always ran leagues. Now everything's just tournaments because the way the sanctioning body changed the scoring, the points, the players didn't want to do league anymore, and we listened to our players. Most of the changes we make come from our players. At our events, we have a kids final at every event. Kids 16 and under usually play free at our events, and there's always kids' toys and prizes that we give away. And all that came from the ideas of our players. Everything we change every year is based on listening to what our players want. So going back to the calendar, sorry for that little aside there, but going back to the calendar, you can also choose filter because when you ping it here, it doesn't know if you're in US or Canada. So you can sort that way too. But that's on pin side, so it's a pretty robust calendar they have there. And then again, Tilt Forums isn't pictured, but it's another one of the popular forums. And there's several community and forum pages for pinball around the country. And then last, you'd be surprised, but it's your local pinball distributor. I've had a lot of players come in because they bought a pinball machine from a distributor and they said, hey, have you ever played in a tournament? No. Well, hey, you should get in touch with our local league. I use the example of Craig Hassel, who's here on the floor selling machines. He owns Fun, which is a retailer in Mesquite, Texas, just because he plays in my league and his son plays in my league, so I'm familiar with them. But there are people all over the country. Trent Augustine is one of the big national players. He's also a pinball distributor. When I used to have an arcade, he's the one that leased us our machines. The distributors will tell you, hey, can you, you ever want to play in a tournament? You ever thought about doing pinball socially? And the distributors will get you involved as well and show you how to get in touch with your local pinball league. So that's been another source as well. So that's the last piece on how do I find pinball tournaments, how do I get involved? Does anybody have any questions, comments, anything I can do? There's a microphone right up at the center here if you want to ask any questions.
You may have already answered this. I came in a little late, and it's a dumb question, but how do they work? How do they score? What are the...
Okay, I didn't really answer that because this is more around how to find the pinball tournaments, but that's a great question. There are all sorts of different scoring formats. They change from tournament to tournament, area to area, depending on the needs of the tournament and what the players want. So in this market, most of the players that are serious players want what's called a group match play tournament, which is you're grouped in groups of 4, you play a couple games together, basically for a round, then you take a break, and next round you're with 4 more people. So it's kind of like a party. You get to meet new people with each group you play with. And in those, it's a 7-5-3-1 scoring. So 7 points for first place, 5 for second, 3 for third, and 1 for fourth place. And then usually we'll go 4 rounds, 2 games per round, so about 8 games, and set of playoffs from that. And run a similar playoffs, just group elimination. At the end of each round, top 2 in that group go on to the next round, bottom 2 go home. A lot of the retailers or the arcades want to do a strikes tournament because they go faster. They don't want their tournaments taking hours on end. So if you want a 2 to 3 hour tournament, something faster, Free Play Arcade runs a strikes tournament here locally every month at each of their locations. Every Monday, one of their locations has one. And basically 3 strikes and you're out. So if you do bad, you might be out after 3 rounds. But it's a lot of fun. You get to play against other people. And, in those groupings, you can set strikes tournaments up several ways. But for example, the most common one is top 2 people in each group don't get a strike, bottom 2 get a strike in each game. There's something called fair strikes that's gotten really popular, where in a group of 4, you win, you get no strikes. Second or third place gets 1 strike. Fourth place gets 2 strikes. And they'll do like 8-strike or 10-strike type tournament. So there's all sorts of different formats depending on the needs of the venue, the needs of the players. I've changed over the years because of what the players have asked for. And most common now is the group match play because they want to be in groups of people where they can socialize, drink a little bit while they play, etc. Great question. What other questions? All right. Well, if there's no other questions, thanks for joining us today, and feel free to talk to me after as well if you need anything. Thank you. Thank you.